She was holding a champagne glass when she saw me, mid-toast, smiling, glowing, surrounded by strangers. Then her eyes landed on mine. And just like that, the glass slipped from her hand. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She staggered backward, caught her heel on the rug, and went down in front of everyone. 5 years. That's how long it took to become a ghost in someone's life. And now, suddenly, I was the haunting. But let me rewind, not to the day I left, but to the night before. Because that's when she first rehearsed my erasure. She stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, phone glowing in her palm like it had all the answers she'd rather not get from me. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just said, flatly, "I need you gone before I start hating you." I asked, "Gone where?" She blinked slowly. "Anywhere. Just not here." That's when I realized I wasn't her husband anymore. I was an inconvenience in her house. No affair talk. No divorce. Just vanish. And like the spineless doormat I'd become, I obeyed. I packed in silence. She didn't even glance up. No hugs. No guilt. Just the soft tapping of her nails on the screen while I folded 6 years of my life into one duffel bag. I left without slamming a door, without leaving a note, without knowing if I'd ever come back. But what Nora didn't know, and maybe still doesn't, is that I didn't vanish out of fear. I vanished because I wanted the silence to finally scream louder than she ever let me. And those 5 years? They weren't empty. They were full of things I could never have imagined, things she'll wish stayed buried. The first 3 days after I disappeared, I expected her to call. Not out of love. No, that ship had already been torched and sunk, but out of practicality. Something like, "Where did you leave the tax documents?" Or, "Can you cancel your half of the lease?" But nothing came. Not a single text. No missed call. No email. It was like she'd erased me before I'd even cleared the driveway. So I drove. I didn't know where I was going. Just that every highway exit I skipped felt like I was peeling away another layer of the fake life we'd built together. Somewhere around midnight, I found a cheap roadside motel with flickering lights and a broken vending machine. I paid cash. I laid on the bed, and I stared at the ceiling, wondering how a person could vanish from their own life without anyone blinking. For a while, I convinced myself I deserved this. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I did talk too much when she was tired, or touch her arm too much when she clearly didn't want it. Maybe the way she rolled away from me every night in bed wasn't rejection. It was just preference. But deep down, some raw, buried part of me was screaming, "This isn't how love dies." A week passed. Then 2. Still nothing. So I did the unthinkable. I drove back to the city. I didn't go to the apartment. We weren't on a restraining order level or anything, but I had some pride left. Instead, I sat across the street from her office building in my car and watched. I saw her come out at lunch, laughing, arm in arm with a man I'd never seen before. He touched her lower back. She didn't flinch. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen since our honeymoon. It didn't hurt. It hollowed me. I wasn't mad. I wasn't jealous. I was confused. How had she replaced me so easily? That night, I booked a storage unit under a fake name and moved what was left of my things out of our shared account and into my own orbit. It wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. The man she'd asked to disappear was finally making peace with being a ghost. But here's where things get strange. 2 months later, I got an anonymous email. No subject line. No greeting. Just 4 words. "She never told you." No context. No follow-up. The account was deleted by the time I hit reply. And just like that, everything I thought I knew about my disappearance started to unravel. At first, I tried to dismiss it. Some spam. A prank. Maybe even Nora herself, bored and messing with me from the comfort of our old bed, with that smug smirk she wore whenever she knew she'd won. But no matter how hard I tried to forget it, the words clung to my brain like rot under fresh paint. "She never told you." Told me what? I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Couldn't focus on the freelance gig I had barely landed after disappearing. I kept replaying the past few months in my head. Every cold stare, every dodge, every time she chose silence over truth. I thought I had left to protect myself from more pain. But what if the pain had already been injected, slowly, and I had just never felt the full dose? 3 days later, I finally cracked. I drove back to the city again, parked a block away from our old building, and just watched. Her curtains were open. The lights were on. And inside, she wasn't alone. Same guy. Tall. Confident. Touchy. The kind of man who didn't need to ask permission to pour himself wine in a home that used to be half mine. I shouldn't have been surprised. I mean, I'd left. She was free. Technically, we were still married, but only on paper, and even that was a formality we both ignored. But it wasn't that she had moved on. It was how comfortable he looked in the space I helped build. He didn't look like a new lover. He looked like someone who'd been there long before I vanished. My stomach turned. I remembered how often she used to come home late from networking events. How she changed her phone password without telling me. How her friend Camille slipped up once and called me Greg. Greg, was that him? I didn't sleep that night. I started digging. I still had access to our shared Google Photos folder, something she must have forgotten about. And in it, buried between an old beach trip and her sister's wedding, was a set of photos I'd never seen before. Date stamped 2 months before I left. Her. Him. Cancun. Smiling. Holding hands. Kissing. My entire chest went hollow. That trip? She told me it was a girl's getaway. She even came back with one of those stupid tourist bracelets and pretended to be tired. I'd made her soup, rubbed her feet. And all the while, she had this man's lips on her skin and my name in her mouth like a lie. She never told you. No, she didn't. But someone else had started to. And I had no idea who they were, or what they knew. But I was about to find out. I became obsessed with finding out who sent that anonymous email. I searched for the source like a man chasing smoke. It had come from a temporary domain, already deleted. No IP. No trail. But it lit a fuse in me I hadn't felt since before Nora hollowed me out and made me doubt everything about myself. For days, I spiraled. I replayed old voicemails of hers, like some pathetic ex clinging to static. I zoomed into photo backgrounds. I listened to the echo in her lies. And then, something clicked. An old shared Dropbox. Not Google Photos. A different folder from years back, one we used when planning our wedding. I hadn't opened it since. But when I did, God help me, someone else had. New files had been added. Weeks ago. Without my knowledge. There were screenshots. Dozens of them. Texts between Nora and someone labeled only as Jay. The tone was casual, flirty, even mocking. But buried halfway down the thread, I found it. He's finally starting to pull away. It won't be long. You sure he won't figure it out before you're done? Corbin? LOL. No. He's a sponge. Absorbs blame and dries up in silence. He won't fight. That message, about me, written like I was a stupid pet they were waiting to rehome, made my skin go cold. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't even just emotional manipulation. It was something calculated. I started printing everything. If I had to build a case, a timeline, a digital autopsy of our marriage, I would. But the deeper I went, the messier it got. Because Jay wasn't just her secret boyfriend. He was the one paying for her apartment now. The one who had signed off on our wedding photos being pulled from her socials. The one who had been in her life long before she told me to disappear. And then it hit me. He wasn't a stranger. He was one of our wedding vendors. Our videographer, Jude Myers. I remembered him. Vaguely. Charismatic. Too friendly. Asked if I minded him getting candids of Nora getting ready in the bridal suite. I was too busy fixing my tie to care. He'd filmed our first kiss as husband and wife. And I now had proof he was kissing her long before she told me to get lost. I stared at their texts until my eyes blurred. All those late-night editing sessions, she said, were artistic collaborations. All those times she told me I was too clingy for not understanding the creative process. And somehow, even now, I didn't feel anger. I felt disoriented, like I had stepped into a memory I didn't recognize. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final screenshot, one from Jude, weeks after I vanished. So he's finally gone. We're in the clear? Her reply, he won't be back. I made sure. But she was wrong, because I was already back, and I wasn't the same man she erased. I didn't sleep the night I discovered Jude's name in those messages. I just sat there, hunched over a pile of printed screenshots like some paranoid detective who couldn't accept what was already obvious. But it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the planning. The way they talked about me like I was less than human. Like I was a temporary glitch in their story. I kept asking myself one question over and over again. What did she mean by, I made sure? I hadn't eaten in 2 days, my hands were shaking, and yet I still didn't let myself break. Not yet. I just kept clicking, scrolling, printing, building a war chest of their words. I wasn't thinking revenge. Not yet. But I knew one thing for certain. This was no longer about heartbreak. This was about clarity. I drove back to the storage unit that night, dug through a box I hadn't opened since I vanished. Inside it was my old wedding binder, receipts, notes, itineraries. And buried inside that, in the very back pocket, was the business card. Jude Myers, Cinematic Moments Wedding Films. I flipped it over. There was a personal note in Nora's handwriting from back then. I'd forgotten all about it. Such a genius with a camera, right, babe? Can't wait to see the magic he creates for us. My stomach turned. The irony was choking. I spent the next day digging into Jude. Not his work. His personal life. I knew his full name, his business address, his phone number. But what I didn't expect to find was this. Jude had a wife. A real, legal, living in the suburbs, PTA-attending wife named Callie. And she had no idea. I found her Instagram. Every post was full of cheerful oblivion. Cooking videos, family hikes, those cringy date night with my man, captions with hearts. And yet, two timelines now overlapped. While Jude was filming Nora slipping on her wedding dress, he was apparently 2 years deep into a marriage of his own. That's when something in me flipped. This wasn't just about me anymore. She wasn't the only one he lied to. And I wasn't the only ghost he created. I waited 2 days. I didn't want to rush it. I needed to be precise, calm, focused. Because if you're going to drop a truth bomb that deep, you better make sure it detonates properly. So I created a burner account. I uploaded one photo to it. The photo was a collage. On one side, Nora and Jude, holding hands at a beach resort, the same one from the hidden folder. On the other side, a smiling Callie with the caption, "My world." Then I followed Callie and waited. She saw it within an hour. And just like that, the first domino tipped. What followed? I couldn't have predicted if I tried. Callie didn't reply to the burner account. She didn't need to. I saw it in real time. Her following list dropped by one. Jude's name disappeared. Then, minutes later, all her smiling photos with him started vanishing one by one. But the most chilling part? She didn't message me. She messaged Nora. I don't know what was said, but 30 minutes later, Nora tried calling me for the first time in 5 years. A number I didn't recognize at first. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice shook. "Corbin, I don't know what you're doing. But please stop. Please. This doesn't help anyone. What's done is done. Just please." I didn't respond. Instead, I drove past her apartment again the next night. This time, the windows were dark. Curtains drawn. No wine glasses. No laughter. Just silence. And then, right as I was about to drive off, the building door opened. It was Callie. I recognized her instantly from her photos. And she didn't look lost. She didn't look scared. She looked like a woman on a mission. In her hand was an envelope. Thick. Heavy. She walked right up to the door of Nora's unit, knocked once, and slid it through the mail slot. Then she turned and walked away like it was the last step in a ritual. I waited until she was gone. Then I pulled my hoodie over my head, walked up the stairs, and knocked on the same door. No answer. But I heard footsteps pause behind the peephole. "Silence." I said. "You asked me to disappear, Nora." "I did. But now that I'm back, you can't pretend I never existed." Still nothing. Not a word. Not a creak. But I saw the curtain twitch behind the window. She was listening. She just didn't know what to say to a ghost she swore would stay buried. I left the steps slowly, letting her wonder if I'd knock again. I didn't have to. The next phase was already moving. That night, Callie messaged me. "Let me help you finish this." It was the first time in 5 years that I didn't feel crazy. Or alone. Two people, broken by the same lie, now quietly aligning. Not for revenge. Not for drama. But because we both knew something neither of them did. That you can't just build a life out of betrayal and expect it not to rot from the inside out. We didn't plan revenge. We just let the truth speak louder than their lies. Callie and I didn't become friends. There were no heart-to-hearts. No swapping sob stories over coffee. We were two people orbiting the same black hole, finally drawn together by gravity. We didn't want justice. We wanted truth. The kind that hits like a mirror shattering in someone else's hands. We started with simple coordination. I gave her the screenshots of the texts between Jude and Nora. She sent me emails Jude had forwarded to Nora from his work account. Ones clearly written when they were still filming weddings together, still living the double life. He used phrases like creative sessions, but the timestamps made it clear. Those sessions often happened after midnight. Sometimes in hotel rooms he had booked under a fake production company. Callie sent everything to his employer first, then his family. She didn't add commentary, just attached the proof and let them read. That silence, that careful restraint, it was worse than yelling. It was surgical. Meanwhile, I sent Nora one file. Just one. It was a screen recording of her Cancun trip photo, zoomed in until her face filled the screen. Then a slow pan to Jude's hand, resting comfortably on her thigh. That was it. No note. No threat. Just a reminder that someone still remembered. The next day, she cracked. She called me 3 times in a row. Then texted. You don't know the full story. I was scared. You left. You vanished. That last one made me laugh. You told me to disappear, Nora. You said it without blinking. The next morning, I got an email from her personal account. The subject line just said, before you decide. It was long, rambling, full of half-excuses and rewrites of history. She said she felt abandoned emotionally, even when I was there, that I wasn't present, that she didn't know how to ask for what she needed. But buried near the end, there was one sentence that told the truth. It was already over. I just didn't want to look like the bad guy. There it was. The thing I'd been trying to name for years. She'd emotionally checked out long before she ever told me to go. She just didn't have the courage to walk away clean. So she pushed me out, hoping I'd vanish without resistance, so she could rewrite the ending however she liked. But now, her story was coming apart. Because when the people you used like scaffolding start speaking, your whole facade crumbles fast. That same day, Jude called me. I didn't even know how he got my new number. But when I answered, the first thing he said was, "What do you want, man?" No apology. No explanation. Just that edge in his voice like I was the problem. So I told him the truth. I want you both to know I saw you. That's it. I'm not coming for anything. I just wanted to stop feeling like a ghost in a story you stole from me. He paused, then laughed, nervous, shallow, fake. You're crazy, dude. I hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice. But not the last time they heard mine. Because 1 week later, I showed up, uninvited, to the one place they'd never expect to see me. And when she saw me, she collapsed. It was a gallery opening. That's what made it ironic. 5 years ago, I would have stood in a corner, quiet and awkward, nervously sipping club soda, while Nora worked the room like it was her stage. But that night, I didn't shrink. I walked in alone, in a suit that actually fit, carrying nothing but myself, and 5 years of quiet truths. She was mid-laugh when she saw me. One of those effortless, performative laughs people do when they want to be admired. She wore the same brand of perfume, same polished presence, same air of control. But then her eyes met mine, and everything shattered. She froze. Her glass slipped. Her knees gave out. A few people rushed to her side, but I didn't move. I didn't come to embarrass her. I didn't come for revenge. I came because it was time to close the loop. I came to be seen, not by her, but by myself. She sat in a chair, breathing hard, pale, shaking. Her eyes begged for answers I wasn't there to give. So I walked over, knelt down beside her, not close, just enough for her to hear, and said, "You got what you wanted." I disappeared, but I didn't stay lost. And I didn't come back to ruin you. I came back to reclaim the part of me you tried to erase. Tears welled in her eyes. Real ones. But I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anything, really. Just peace. I stood up, nodded once, and left. I never looked back. Because the truth is, I'm not angry anymore. Not really. She did what she did. And I let her, for far too long. But I'm done writing my story around the wreckage of hers. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've moved cities. Started over. Built a quiet little life. I don't post about it. I don't flaunt it. I just live. On my terms. And last week, I met someone. Her name's Willa. She works in restoration. Fitting, right? Fixing things people thought were ruined. She's calm where Nora was chaos. Honest where Nora was smoke. I told her everything. And instead of flinching or judging, she just said, "Sometimes, disappearing is the bravest thing you can do." She's not a replacement. She's the proof that healing isn't just possible, it's real. So to anyone out there who was made to feel small, silent, or invisible, you're not broken. You're just in the middle of the story. And sometimes the ending isn't revenge. It's release.